Hello there. Welcome back to Football Manager. Last time around, we basically got to almost halfway point through the season. There was also a bunch of advice that I'm very grateful for on the last video, and today we are going to continue. One of the main concerns was that I might not be giving my talents here enough playtime, and that could really be a bit of a problem. But in general, we do have a decent amount of playtime. We'll probably play Bart a little bit more here, honestly. 10 games so far versus 16 for Stella or Steel. But generally, I do try and play them as much as I can while still having decent results in terms of the league games. So honestly, loaning them out is probably a good idea. But at the same time, with talents like this guy right here, you can actually reach 4 stars, potentially 5 if we train him right. I do kind of want to have a little bit more control over the development. So he hasn't gotten that many apps yet, just 4 plus 2. But as we go into the second half of the season with much more dense games here, there's going to be much more opportunities for talents to prove themselves. And we're still in a somewhat a risky situation here. We only have 1 point down to Tottenham, 3 points down to Newcastle. And generally, it's going to be probably rough to hold on to a top 7 spot here. But we'd really like to do that as it would help getting talents in, and of course it would also help with developing the team. So loaning out to players can definitely be a thing. We might pick up some, not super talents to loan them out, but that is a thing that we'll have a look at in the future. Another thing that was mentioned was that youth intakes are, well, happening in March. They are. Youth intakes for England is happening in March, but generally youth intakes are happening around the world throughout the year. I believe it's October for most of South America. So we have set up scouting for most things there, so don't worry too much about that. But the goal of this part is going to be very simple. We're going to try and get through the second half of the season. We're going to see if we find some talents in January, and we're probably going to do a little bit of purging of our squad here. One of the example here is Stella, or Steel. I don't know why I keep on calling him Stella. He is 33 years old, but he is English, and honestly, while this might be a little bit silly, I generally am fine with having just one main goalkeeper and one kind of backup goalkeeper. And honestly, I kind of do want to develop this kid, so I am thinking of letting go of him, honestly. And we also have a couple of other players here that we might end up letting go. But I'm still a little bit uncertain about who, so I'll go over that. We'll see what we figure out. Welbeck, we've already let go because he got very upset. But I'm gonna figure out exactly who we want to put to use it. And the other problem with this guy here, the main talent where he has so few games, is basically because he's had a few injuries. Let's see, where is my injury history here? You can see 2 days, 3 weeks out. So in periods where I can actually been able to use him, he has been injured. But yeah, we'll get into the trading window. We'll see if we can find some new talents to put into the team. Maybe as suggested, buy them, borrow them out, and basically kind of turn into a talent developing station where we loan our players and make a profit that way. We'll see. So we're getting into the transfer window here, and we have a few players whose contracts are being, well, run down. Now, Chad Sharpen here is currently loaned out, and honestly, probably would be best to try and sell him. Jean-Paul Van Heck here, no interest in new contract, he's currently unhappy. I gave him a promise, so until we solve said promise, well, we basically end up with, where are my promises? They should be here somewhere, unless I'm blind, which might be very well the case. Let's see. Let me see if I can find the prompts for a second. Here we are. I forgot it was in dynamics. So we have a few issues here. Basically just playing time for Van Heck, Lamptey, Igor, and Dahoud here. We have a couple of other players who were upset they were left out of the Europa League squad. And Steeler here wants a new deal to reflect its abilities. So again, I am very tempted to just let him go. He is older, but he is English, and that is kind of important. So we might have to deal with that. Now, this guy, we're probably just going to let go due to the fact that he is a fringe player. He's in his prime years, and currently he is probably our, yeah, seventh best option because we brought in De La Cruz, and I would rather try and develop Gilmore and Muder rather than have him here. Now, Milner and Lallana are also another little bit of a conundrum. So Milner actually has a contract extension that we can just trigger very simply. But I'm a little bit unsure what I want to do with Lallana. If we want to keep him for another year, just to kind of try and help fill that the English numbers, so to speak, but also to have some good cover. Because he is currently our best attacking midfielder center. Pascal Grosse is our second one, and he too is rather old. So we're definitely going to have to pick up some, if we're going to keep on using the strategies we're currently using, we might need to pick up some better alternatives here. But let's be honest, we have players that can be put in there. Among them, we have, well, not Ferguson, but Talos Magno here can be moved down. And 2.5 stars, well, not great. He can still play that role pretty well. So, well, it's not great. It's not terrible either. We've also picked up a injury here for Lamptey, who I was considering selling at one point, but honestly, we're going to keep him because of the main fact that he is actually English raced, so to speak. So we're going to be keeping him for that. I didn't remember or realize that he was when I talked about him earlier. So we're definitely going to be keeping him. But as I said, we're going to be having a little bit of a look here at what happens with our team. We currently have Arsenal coming up, and the last 2 games here before the window opened went actually pretty well. 4-1 against Burnley, and then we eked out a 1-0 against Palace. Can be very, very happy with that. But honestly, as I said, I'm a little bit unsure. Again, I think it would be good to extend Milner and Lallana's contracts for 1 more season, just to make sure that we have cover. And then we'll probably just end up letting them go. But Steele here, I do kind of want to keep him. He's been here for a while. And we also have some interest for Solly March from Chelsea. So if they want to, kidnap him, I probably can't keep him, if you will. So we'll have to see how that goes. But if we do end up selling him, we should make a decent amount of chunk of money and potentially get a decent replacement. But he is English. He is our best player currently in the right wing option. So I definitely do not want to let him go just yet. We've received a fairly interesting offer here for Webster. And my first reaction is that I want to deny it because, well, it's one of our English players. And we don't actually have much depth in the center here. I'm planning to sell Igor because, well, development-wise, he's not going to get high. And we have better options here. I'm going to try and keep Van Heck, hopefully. But we also have one of our newer talents here. I think it's not Martinez, but the other one can actually play center back as well, just as well as he can play as a, well, back. So letting go Igor is fine, but Webster here, we want to keep him. We have Lewis too. So again, I want to try and keep as many English players as I can, with the exception of Stiller. So I think we're going to have to deny that. They're offering 32 million completed, but it's not going to happen. I have gone ahead and extended Milner's contract by a year, but Lallana unfortunately decided that he did not really want to cooperate with me. And what I mean by this is very, very simple. I tried to get a new contract. He wanted at least a 3-year contract, which means that he would be here until he's 39. So honestly, he is really, really skilled, but a 3-year contract is unfortunately a little bit too much for us. So it is what it is. He wouldn't go down to 2 years even. I tried to negotiate for a 2-year contract, and the agent was just like, "Nah, we're done here," on the first try. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. We'll keep on this transfer window and see if we see something interesting happen. But as I said, probably going to reject that Webster loan. Transfer deadline has just passed, meaning that we're done with the transfer window. We ended up getting 3 of our players out: Welbeck, Igor, and Dahoud. Both of these are loan deals that will turn into permanent deals for, as you see, 14 million there, mandatory. And for this man, a 9.5 million mandatory, but also an extra 9.5 million. So both of them pretty decent deals. They have a decent amount of loan cost. So these basically are market value, if you will. We did buy this guy, Emil Smith-Rowe, and also Adrian Masilu. I don't know when we actually picked this guy up. Maybe a predetermined one. But I decided that since Lallana is not interested in getting a new contract with us, I thought I'd pick up a younger English talent, and we did buy him for 32 million. He was unhappy in his previous team, and I think this is actually a really, really good deal. So hopefully we can get, well, a decent performance out of him. And I think I'm happy with this because he can play kind of everywhere, honestly. Wingers, mid, everywhere. And I like players like that, so definitely a good option. Injury risk, he is injury prone, so that might be a bad thing, but we'll just have to deal with that as we go. We've also picked up 3 new players on free transfers because they had their contracts running out. Leo Board, who is potentially a decent talent. If not, we'll just loan him out and then, trade him again in the future. Same here for Echegoyen. And finally, we also picked up Linger, who was also a free transfer and will help fill up the midfield when we have, well, people leaving. We're also looking at a new staff member here, under 21's coach, because, well, the previous one left, and this is actually a pretty good option for a youth coach, so we'll definitely take that. And we also failed to give Van Heck a new contract that he was happy with. We were able to offer him one, but unfortunately he picked an offer from Lazio instead. And Adinagro here, although we did get a loan and decent deal here for him, he rejected the deal with Lille. So we'll have to probably try and get him sold in the summer then, I think, because, well, we're just going to have to deal with that. Apparently he's in Strasbourg right now, so why am I... right, I still got him loaned out, just didn't get him sold. That's how that works. Yes, thank you. So not the best transfer window by any means of the situation, but we have a decent amount of transfer budget because there's future fees tied to some of the sales. We're going to get in some money next season too, so the transfer budget won't be just 40 million. And I hope 17 million here will be enough to pick up talents because once March comes, we're going to get talents spawning in England, and hopefully we can pick up some of the better ones. And in terms of the youth intake, apparently we have something to look forward to because the youth candidates, we have a very handy wing prospect. Again, been a while since I've done this, but I'm looking forward to seeing that. And we have 2 forwards who are considered to be fine prospects. So looking forward to seeing what this means. Potentially, we have 3 players that could be very, well, somewhat skilled. We do have an excellent intake, and hopefully we can do something about that. But with the fact that we now have both Igor and Van Heck going, we're going to have to probably pick up another central defender come the summer window. Veltlink has played central defender. Same can, I believe it is Francis. It's one of the new wingbacks we bought. So we are still covered in terms of places, and Barco now is back with us, and he is probably one of the greatest talents around. Can play midfielder or everything around the left here pretty decently. And if we want to, we could probably trade him into being a AMC as well, because he's just generally skilled at everything. So he can do most things except hitting the goal and heading the ball. So he's a handy talent that we picked up for good just 8 million. So far it's looking really, really good. In terms of the performance of the team here during this period, it's not been the greatest, I'll be honest. We ended up with a surprise win here against Arsenal, but after that, everything started going wrong. We drew against Everton at our home game for the FA Cup. Then we lost against Chelsea. I did put up a bit of a B side here, in all honesty, in order to have my team rested for Everton, but that didn't help. We got our asses kicked there too, and we, well, got kicked out of the FA Cup at our first opportunity. We did get a little bit of a payback here against Luton, so things should be back in terms of morale. And we have another potential beatdown here against Burnley, but then we're going to have a couple of rough games here. United, Liverpool, Newcastle. But so far, league-wise, it is going really, really well. We're still sixth. I think we can potentially grab one of the top 7 places here. I think it is somewhat viable. But we have Chelsea, we have Newcastle, as I mentioned. So if we beat Newcastle, then probably going to have a much better chance. But we're going to be reliant on having some good performances here to make this happen here. So goal list, Ferguson here is actually doing really well. He's up into 11th, and development-wise, he's doing pretty decently, I would argue. And hopefully, we can keep developing him into a top-tier striker. We've finally reached the midpoint of March, and with the midpoint of March comes our talents. And we actually have an incredibly good talent here in Jamie Monaghan. He's Northern Irish, but he is a potential 4-star, so that is not bad. A good intake here, and we also have an additional, well, potential 3.5-star, and a couple of decent ones here that could develop somewhat, but definitely one really, really good talent, one decent talent, and two basically okay talents, while the rest here aren't great, but at least good enough that I think that we are going to be signing a lot of these just to, well, fill up the spaces, particularly the good talents here. Top talents, of course, elite talents, we're going to be signing all of those. But we're also going to go ahead and have a look at the youth teams of some of the top teams and see if we might be able to snatch someone for free. I'll probably end up with a lot of coal, but if I can find a diamond, that would definitely be really, really beneficial this early. But most teams will have them, I would assume, under lock and key of a contract, so we'll try. But honestly, I don't expect us to have much success. In terms of our, well, sporting success here, we are currently on a bit of a bad one. So last time we checked in, it was the 5-1 victory over Luton. Then we've had a couple of victories here. Burnley, Bournemouth lost a pretty exciting game here versus United, where we scored 3. They scored 4. 1 against Liverpool at home. So that was a pretty good one. Then the bad period started where we lost, well, not lost, played a draw against Newcastle, and 1-2 and 3-5 versus Parthenope, who's actually Napoli, but Napoli, probably one of those, I would hope, as well as Fulham. So we're out of Europa League, but I think the board is still happy with how we did, so can't be too surprised here. And we're also out of the FA Cup here versus Everton, but I believe I did showcase that earlier. So no more cup tournaments for us. All we have now are the remaining Premier Division games. And so far, we're actually doing pretty well in the Premier Division. We're currently in 6th place. We have a little bit of leeway here in terms of down to Chelsea. We can basically lose a couple of games, but we have Everton coming up, which could be a little bit tough. And also in terms of our future games here, we do have Tottenham. But a lot of these games should be fairly simple. Well, City, that too for that matter. So if we win everything but these 3, I think we'll have a good shot. But it's going to still be a little bit rough. But if we can secure 6th, I'd say this is a very successful start of the season. And so far, Ferguson here has been developing pretty nicely, I'll be honest. And he is probably the talent that has developed the most because we've been kind of limited. But Barco, 3 stars, Ferguson, CCO, these guys have all had some decent development. Bartier isn't really developing though, which is a bit of a problem because I was planning to use him as a number 1 goalkeeper, so we might need to start looking for another one. But we do have a lot of actual talent in this squad, and potentially we could make some money if we need it. But as I said, next season we are going to have to probably pick up some defenders. I'll be going through the team planner and see exactly what we have available to us, and we'll figure out what we do with Steele, but I think we are going to have to most likely let him go. I think that is unfortunately going to be the end of the matter. But we're going to be signing, of course, all of these talents, the good talents, the top talents, the elite talent here, and Jamie here. Potentially, we might actually start moving up for put him in the first team, give him some play time for again for U18, U21, and try and develop him rather quickly. He's just 15 years old, so he has plenty of time to develop here. And basically now 6 years of well, 6 years where we don't need to sign him up for anything. And he has really high determination too. Dribbling, finishing, first touch, all look pretty good. Technique, a little bit lacking here on the physical stance, but honestly, we can get those up as he ages. A little bit lack of composure off the ball, work rate, but honestly, I feel like he is a pretty decent prospect here, and I'm looking forward to developing this this little gremlin, so to speak. But for now, I'm gonna get the contracts done. I'm gonna go ahead and have a look at the other teams. Probably gonna spend a couple hours on that, and we'll see if we can snatch another diamond or two. But the reality of the situation is probably that we're gonna be getting a lot of coal. Just a quick example of what I mean with gambling. So we can actually go into, say, Manchester City's under 18 squad and have a look at what they pulled out. So this is a example of a youth they pulled. First touch, determination, teamwork. We know a few of the stats. Doesn't actually look too stellar here, but we could potentially approach to sign as long as they're on youth contracts. That doesn't actually mean that they're going to be willing to join us. So basically, I'm going to be going through the list here, and we'll see if we can find players that we think are worth it to sign. Because even if we go ahead and go approach to sign here, just want to show it as an example, we're still going to have to pay compensation. So potentially we could end up paying 2 million for a player that isn't really worth it. And in this case, Charlie Davis there, Chris Mason, I don't even know, Charlie Delve, probably wasn't going to be worth it. But we are probably going to end up scouting all of these guys anyway. So we're just going to do that as we go. And this guy is kind of an interesting one. Right wing, fairly high dribbling. I think this is a man we would like to gamble on if we could, in all honesty. Mainly also because I'm biased because he's Norwegian. I'll be fair. Looks like most stats are fairly high though, with the exception of heading, which usually isn't that high in lower players. But the acceleration, jumping reach, again, kind of what we expected. This looks like a gamble that isn't. I say this is a 40-60, 40% of it going our way. So I want to see if he's interested. He isn't. Okay, so that probably tells us the story that we wanted. But this is basically what I'm going to do. Go through, see if we can find someone that is interesting. This guy is kind of interesting. He's a wing back, marking, passing, a little bit low under tackling. Work rate is great here, potentially. So potentially this guy might be one that we'll, try and snatch up. But what I'm thinking here is that I'm just going to go ahead and add to shortlist for a month. And I'm going to go through the teams. We're going to see what we figure out that we want to try and pick up. And potentially here, as I said, we might be able to snatch a couple of diamonds in the rough from the other teams here if we are lucky. So I'll go ahead, shortlist them for a month, and then decide on who we want to try and snatch. And as I said, we'll probably just go ahead and do this for well, most of the teams here in this league, because if we can find good, particularly English players early, that is going to benefit us massively later on. So let's see if we can pull something out of the hat here. We have reached the end of our first season at Brighton, and we'll have a little bit of a look at how we performed. So the new arrivals here, we did hire Smith Rowe. He's the best one. We are going to have to probably handle the manager a little bit, but honestly, most of these transfers were good. We can be very happy with that. We ended up in 6th place, which is actually really, really lucky because as you can see here, the last couple of months were not good performance-wise. We did win against Aston, we did win against West Ham, but as you see here, Tottenham just didn't perform well enough. We had 10 points on them, so luckily this draw probably helped too. But luckily here, even with the kind of mediocre performance against Sheffield, against Brentford, Nottingham, we still managed to eke out a 6th place. And I think we can be very happy about that. The stadium too was filled up almost to capacity, so we might need to try and argue with our team to get an expansion. The Europa League, we got knocked out in the round of 16 by Parthenope, or Naples. FA Cup, we got knocked out by Everton, which was a little bit unfortunate, and the Carabao Cup, we got knocked out by Arsenal. So we didn't really get a lot of cup playing here, which probably hampered a little bit of the development of our team. But honestly, we had some good time here. Our biggest win was against Rangers. Apparently, a match to remember was against West Ham. And goal of the season was by De La Cruz, apparently. So we will take that in our loss against Fulham. But financially, we're actually looking fairly good, I believe. We are going to have a decent chunk of money next year for our transfer budget. And this is apparently my most used lineup, which shouldn't come as a shouldn't really come as a surprise. Accolades, manager awards, didn't pick up any. We picked up some other accolades here. Player of the season was actually De La Cruz, and I'm considering selling him, so that's kind of bad. Ferguson, young player. Smith Rowe here, signing. De La Cruz did very, very well. So yeah, might need to reconsider the idea of selling him, but we are going to do a little bit of purging for sure. And we have actually picked up decent talent here as well. But yeah, Brighton have everything to start the season. Really slipped off thereafter. Honestly, we did kind of slip off though, let's be honest. But it is good. Apparently, this is a new feature. I don't think I've seen this before. Guess it's basically the summary of my career, I guess one could say. I do like this. It makes it a little bit more interesting. It does feel very, very laggy, I'll be honest. So, but yeah, looks really, really good. But let's have a look here just quickly on what we are looking at. So we did end up 6th in the division. As I said, that's pretty good. But I want to have a quick look here at the squad. So Steele here is probably going to get sold. He is asking to leave. He's older. And generally, we are probably going to end up selling him as a result of that. Now, Bart here has not developed as well as we'd hoped, but he isn't developing poorly either. So hopefully we can get him up to scratch very soon. That would be really, really good. And in terms of the defense here, we have a couple of older defenders, Dunk and Veltman. For now, we're probably going to keep both of them. Francis and Martinez both have had some decent development. Nothing too shabby. They're still developing nicely. It's a little bit of a concern, though. They're both over 20 now, so we'll have to see if they can keep this development up going forwards. Igor is getting sold. It was a done deal from the trade. Webster, keeping him for now for sure. Van Heck is leaving him free transfer. Couldn't keep him, which is very, very unfortunate because he's actually really decent. Stupian, done well. Lamptey here hasn't really developed too well, and he's also getting older. He is homegrown in nation, I believe, so while keeping him would be nice. Unfortunately, he's just getting a little bit too old. He's not developing well enough. And generally here, I think we have better bets of being able to use some other drivers, other players, unfortunately. So most likely going to be selling him this season, this next season, which isn't the greatest, but I think we just have to. Milner here, I'm actually kind of regretting extending his contract because he hasn't seen much use of this latter half of the season. I should have waited. I was just afraid someone would snatch him up, which honestly no one probably would have. So that was a mistake by me. Rove, a good signing. Hope he can keep on developing. He's done not much of it right now, but he hasn't been there for too long. He's also had a little bit of an injury streak, but he is getting back into it. Lalana will be leaving on free transfer after this, but he's probably been one of our better players over the course of this season. Played 46 games and had a 7.12 average rating. So he hasn't been doing too poorly, but he is starting to decline. So I'm thinking we're just going to let him go on free transfer. We have Smith Rowe that can fill in his position, and we have some other potential players coming in very soon that will also do the same. Dahoud here, been sold. Pascal Gross, I don't know what we want to do with him. He is still decent skill-wise, so we might keep him, but I'm thinking that we either sell him or De La Cruz here. We'll have to see exactly what we end up with, because we have currently a little bit of an overflow on the midfield in particular. We're probably going to get rid of Baleba, Ayari as well as Mode here. He just hasn't developed. He's 25 years old. I don't see any huge chance of him developing, and even then, he's not going to get a lot better. So if we can get some money for him, we'll go for that. Barco is probably the player that has developed second best after Ferguson, and he's kind of a very, very good prospect because he can play wing back, he can play left wing, he can play center midfield. So he is a potato, which we call it in Norway. Basically, a potato is something that can be used for everything. So he's really, really good, and we're probably going to try and get him to natural in the midfield, get him to natural on the left wing, and that way we have a lot of flexibility just by having him in the team. So he's definitely a good pickup. March here, developing neatly still. We'll probably keep him around. Buono Notte hasn't developed as well as we'd hoped, but he hasn't been giving too many games. He's had some injury problems this year, unfortunately, which has slowed down his development. So hopefully we can get him a little bit, develop a little bit better next year. Lalana, as I said, going to be let go. Pedro here, probably going to keep him, to be fair, as well as Magno and Mitomo. But Ancizio, we're probably going to have to let go. He just isn't performing, and his ceiling isn't that high. And the same here for Sarmiento. Adinagra, again, 22 years old, 2 stars, a little bit too old to develop, I feel. Undav is going to get sold as well. And Ferguson, as I said, is probably the player that has developed the best. And he's getting up there as a very, very decent striker. So that is currently what we're looking at in terms of the first team. We have probably a little bit too large number of players, I'll be honest. So we are going to go ahead and sell probably a lot of them. As you see, we have six left wings, 3 right wings, bunch of midfielders. So we definitely have a little bit too many players at the moment, and we do need to kind of sort that out. In terms of the transfers coming in for next season, I have gone ahead and done another one. Danny Clark here. He is a defender right. We're probably going to train him on defender left as well. But he's probably one of the better English prospects that are coming through. 4 stars potentially on the defense. He's 16 years old, and we've signed him somewhat cheaply here. So we are going to go ahead and pick him up next season, which would be good. I did try and gamble here on picking up someone without scouting them. Sam Stewart was the only one I really could find. Everyone else was either didn't look too good, or just decided that, nah, I don't want to. And unfortunately, we did end up rolling the low end here, so this is just going to cost us money. No real chance of developing him properly, I think. So, yeah. That idea of mine didn't really work out. We've also gone ahead and signed Archie Gray. And this should help us with getting a proper English midfield and help with the homegrown status, everything like that. And Archie here is a very, very decent talent, potentially 4.5 stars, and paying 21.5 million for that is perfectly fine by me. He does have something that he needs to work on, but he should be able to fill in, as I said, on the midfield, defensive midfield potentially also if we need to. So definitely a good pick is what I'm feeling here for this kid. Other than that, the other transfers here are just the ones that were negotiated beforehand. Free transfers coming in from January. Boud, Echegoin, and Linger. So we'll have a look at that once the new season starts. And as you can see, we're doing some new some extensions to our scouting team, some extension to our recruitment analytics, and hopefully that shall have a bit of a positive effect on the team. I have argued now, and we've picked up 3 new scouts, bringing our total number of scouts up to what is it now? 16, I believe, once we sign those 3. Transfer budget for next year has also been designed, almost 60 million with 162k wage budget. Considering the amount of players that I'd like to sell, we might have a very, very high amount of money going into next year, which means that we could have some pretty decent changes on what we end up doing. Well, the team for that matter, but it's kind of a rough one. We do also have some potential talents here that we want to go for. Ronnie Budgie would probably be a good one. But talent-wise, he isn't getting. It doesn't have super good potential, I'll be honest. And we already have a bunch of players that we do want to race in his position. He is potentially better than Bueno Not here, and he's also younger. So for 50 million, we might go ahead and pick him up. But as I said, we kind of have most spots filled out, so we're probably going to end up loaning him out if we do. Konate here is another one that I had a little bit interest in having a look at. He's already decent, but if you consider the fact that we don't really need any extra strikers, even though he is fairly fairly cheap to buy, let's not get that wrong. He would be better than Ferguson. That way, we would also have two very, very good strikers, as well as the talent that we picked up this year. So we do have some options on who we might pick up. He's also fairly young, so we probably make back more than that money on if we do pick him up. So we found a lot of potentially interesting targets here, but I'm a little bit unsure exactly who we're going to end up picking up, who we're going to end up not picking up. Currently, we're scouting mainly Europe and a couple of parts of South Africa. Sorry, not South Africa, South America. And the 3 new scouts should help us with filling out the rest of South America in particular, probably Mexico as well, maybe one in Scandinavia, Portugal. We're lacking, as you can see here from the scouting coverage. Apparently, it's not reflecting here, but we are lacking a few areas, so we'll have to deal with that. I have currently refitted the scouting or recruitment focuses here as a result of getting more scouts, so this should be good. And again, we're scouting basically per country as a main focus. So we shall deal with that as we go. But this has been a fairly good first season, I feel. I don't think I've forgotten anything about how we've done so far. And hopefully, we'll see how things develop going forwards. But I think we might put a little bit more focus on the training aspects, the racing of talents, if you will, scouting as a whole. But I'm really, really enjoying Football Manager again. It's been a game I enjoyed a lot in the past. It's been a couple of years since I last played it, but getting back into it and looking at talent scouting, having outperforming not really outperforming, but having a good performance with the team, all felt really good here. So yeah, I'll have to see how again the format if we keep on doing. As I've said, basically, I should describe this. Basically, an after action report style, which is what I've been doing for the last couple episodes. If we keep that going, or if I change things up, but I'll be experimenting during this Brighton save. So let me know what you think, and I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.